Alright, so I was scrolling the internet like a normal person, and I stumbled across one of the weirdest crossover episodes I've ever seen. Linux x Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, that sentence shouldn't exist, but here we are. So apparently the bash manual, yes, that bash, the command line shell, somehow ended up inside the Epstein court documents. And no, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This actually happened. Let me explain. When the Epstein files were released, they weren't released as nice, clean PDFs or spreadsheets. They were dumped as raw digital evidence. Basically, copies of hard drives, emails, attachments, the whole mess. Which means everything that was on those systems was included. Not just the incriminating stuff, but also random files, manuals, notes. Basically digital clutter. And that's where things get funny. Someone noticed that inside these files was the bash reference manual, just sitting there, but the explanation is actually way more boring, and way more interesting than you would expect. Here's the thing, when forensic investigators copy a system, they don't cherry pick files, they make full disk images, which means if anyone, used a Linux system, or a Unix based tool, or even just open documentation while working, that documentation gets copied too. So the bash manual wasn't evidence, it was just collateral damage. In other words, someone somewhere in the investigation pipeline used a Linux system. That's it, that's the entire mystery. But here's why I actually love this story, because it perfectly shows how raw and unfiltered digital evidence really is. It's not curated, it's not neat, it's messy, boring, technical, and full of random junk that has nothing to do with the case. And yet, once it's in public, every single file suddenly becomes symbolic, even a man page. So no, bash is not secretly implicated in anything. The command line is innocent. This is just a reminder that digital forensics capture everything, even the boring parts. And sometimes the boring parts become the funniest headline. If you enjoyed this little internet oddity, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What was the weirdest place you have ever seen Linux show up? I'll see you in the next one.